December 3rd, 2019. Joe here at Simple Life Show. I appreciate everybody for joining me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all that good social media stuff. I want to make these videos a little bit shorter. I know I have a tendency of droning on and on about certain things, and I just want to streamline everything. I've been having a lot of decent, constructive conversations with people online and in social media about the current state of this country, especially with people in Canada and other countries as well, who really agree with the whole nationalist mindset, because I think that this nationalist mindset is really growing over a lot of different countries. We see it especially in the Nordic countries. We see it growing exponentially in Europe and also in the Ukraine and a lot of other countries out there, and especially here in the U.S. and in Canada. So nationalism is not being buried by democratic socialism. It is actually growing. And I think that the democratic socialists, if you want to call them democratic socialists, and we've talked about this before in other episodes and other videos, that there is no real difference between democratic socialism, national socialism, Leninist socialism, Marxist socialism. It is always a type of socialism. Now, there are differences in that type of socialism that even Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and all the other Democratic candidates who have hopped on board of this socialism train, they can't even explain that to you. And I'm here to explain that to you, that yes, there are certain differences in that they are not the same. However, their bloodline runs true. It is all about government control. It's all about keeping capitalism or true capitalism down. Now, some can argue, and even I would argue, that we are living under a type of crony capitalism or crapitalism, where there are two main types of people out there. And the two types, and this is all you really need to know, there are entrepreneurs who function under a economical type of system, a true honest capitalist system, where they provide things of value to the public. And once they do that, if you find something that has actually a value to the public, then you scale it up and you grow more. And as long as the demand's still there, guess what? You're going to be wealthy. It's a pretty simple system, right? However, there is a lot of other entrepreneurs out there that are political entrepreneurs, where they take control in their own positions and they use the suffering of others to enrich themselves, basically. And you've seen this a lot. And I would probably have to say that Hillary Clinton and those on the left, and even some on the right, are can really fall under that moniker and under that platform. This is what really needs to be rooted out in this system. If we want nationalism or populism to survive in this country and we want it to grow, then that is what we need to focus on. And that is what Trump is trying to do. He is trying to weed out a lot of the sewage that is mucking all the pipes up. He is a businessman. He understands that providing things of value means that you're going to get rich. And there's nothing wrong with people being rich under a true, honest capitalist society. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because think about it. If you have wealthy people that are constantly funneling money into a loop feedback system, guess what? All that money is not just sitting in some coffer somewhere. It is being redistributed, and I don't even like using that word because it's a socialist term, but it's being funneled out to other people who are using that capital to form their own types of entrepreneur, types of businesses and so forth. That's what they are doing. And the more that they do that, and if they are successful, guess what? They're providing more value for people out there. People are having a higher standard of living. The doors of opportunity will open more for people to actually be entrepreneurs. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to build your own business. But if we lived under a true capitalist society, yes, it would be a lot easier, because then you wouldn't have the idea of government getting involved or siphoning off of that wealth wouldn't be such a popular idea as it is today. So this entire idea of it's almost like an anti-capitalist movement that's going on. But what it really is an anti-capitalist movement. It's an anti-crony capitalist movement, which I'm 100% on board with. But you have to understand that underneath those good intentions on getting a lot of the filth out is a lot of this government intervention. Government is the answer to everything. Now, whenever you're in a conversation with a progressive, whenever you're in a conversation with a Democrat, liberal, or anyone of a left-leaning ideology or a groupthink ideology, then the first thing that's probably going to be coming up is income inequality. Bernie Sanders talks about income inequality a lot. It is one of the things that really drives people towards him because everybody wants to be equal. It is our human nature to want to be equal with each other. It's in our human nature to want to make sure everyone is okay. But what they're not telling you is that even the poorest of the people in this country are still better off than 2/3 of the country. Now, I know this is a relative type thing. Being poor is poor. Starving is starving. I understand that. But we need to focus on the actual problem of poverty and not so much the relative issue between who has more and who has less. Okay, this is the common theme that keeps coming up. I am myself a minimalist. I think that the more that people actually embrace a minimalist approach to life, then they'll be happier. They won't be as stressed out, and they won't be having to clamor so much for money. But point the finger where it really belongs, I think, is so much the centralized banking system, the Federal Reserve, crony capitalism, its political entrepreneurship, and all that kind of stuff. And that is what's really causing a lot of these issues in our country. So Bernie Sanders, while his intentions might be in the right place, he is pointing the fingers at the wrong people. He's pointing the fingers at the people who are actually creating value in this country. So what's going to end up happening is that when you look at this, and I'll go ahead and just I'll go ahead and blow this up so you can actually see it here. Sanders' solution for income equality, of course, is tax the rich, right? That's the only solution that you can really come up with. So when we look at this article, there's a few things that kind of stand out to me. Number one, taxing the wealthy is not going to really do anything. If you look back at a lot of the tax rates that were from decades past, the 50s, 60s, 70s, and so forth, where the minimum tax rate was anywhere between 70 to 80 to 90%. We've seen those tax rates, but guess what? The fact is that people were not paying those taxes. They were spending their money with really expensive tax attorneys, and they were finding loopholes, and loopholes were abundant at that time. They still are abundant. But of course, Bernie Sanders has a solution to that. He's just going to close all the loopholes, right? So what happens when Bernie Sanders closes all the loopholes? People do not want to pay that many taxes, especially when they're wealthy and they have all their overhead as well. I think that people who are entrepreneurs or that are participating in an honest system, they do not deserve to be punished for taking the risk of opening up their own business. I think that as long as they're providing something of value and people want it and there is a demand for it, then they should make as much money as they want to make. That is simply the end of the story when it comes to that. And I'm sorry about the notifications there. I'm doing this live, so sometimes that happens. So that's what Bernie Sanders wants to do. He obviously wants to tax the rich. Now, this is a graph of his wealth tax. If let's say there was a 2% on households with a net worth of between 50 million and 1 billion, and a 6% tax on wealth above $1 billion. And it goes all the way up to 8% for 10 billion and more. There's not too many people who make more than $10 billion in a year. There are people out there. They're part of the 0.1 of 1% of this world, of this country. So when even Bill Gates has kind of stepped back and said, I don't know about all this. This is going to be pretty expensive. I want to pay my fair share in taxes, but this is kind of getting ridiculous. And this is just that this is a tax that's over and above their regular income taxes. This is a value added tax. This is a wealth tax. This is something that's extra. Not only that, of course, that is just the wealth tax. So it goes on to read here. People will always find ways to avoid it, and people are creative. So I think it'll be a wonderful time for tax lawyers and for organizations that are actively trying to oppose this This is true. While several European countries have dabbled with the wealth tax, many have gone by the wayside. Only 4 countries, of course, some of the Nordic countries and Norway, Spain, Switzerland, Belgium, they still have the tax on the books. I'm not exactly sure how far it goes, but it's technically still on the books. Sweden actually did away with the wealth tax in 2007 after business people started balking the tax rates and moved away from the country along with their money. This is going to happen if Bernie Sanders is president, and he actually does this. You're going to see a lot of businesses once again move away from these high taxes, especially when they close the loopholes. So all you're going to be really doing, especially with loopholes in place, you're going to be giving more money to the tax lawyers. Okay, and that's all you're going to be accomplishing, and you're going to be actually creating a more corrupt system. So once you actually close off those loopholes, guess what? All those rich people are going to be taking their business into Mexico, into Canada, or anywhere else overseas that will have lower tax rates and cheaper labor. So Bernie Sanders will, in effect, crash the entire economy, and also he won't be accomplishing any of the stuff that he really wants to accomplish. Bless his heart, but his ideas are not pointed at the right, his fingers aren't pointed at the right problems. Definitely not the right solutions. Let me see. Edwards says that an expert, the super rich, would first spend down much of their wealth into lobbying for such an exemption before taking on debt and then procuring large amounts of the assets which have been made exempt in an attempt to move to lower tax brackets. Of course, this is just what's going to happen. Bernie Sanders also wants to have a Wall Street speculation tax. Of course, Wall Street's also the enemy as well. Those who make a lot of money on Wall Street, they are all the devils, and we need to tax the hell out of them. The American people bailed out Wall Street. Now it's time to Wall Street to come in to the aid of the middle class of this country. He has repeated below to large cheers in Iowa, South Carolina, North Carolina. Of course, we're still talking about Bernie Sanders here. The United Kingdom, which has a similar tax of 0.5% on share trading, raised $4.5 billion in 2018. Economists estimates that using this number as a model, the U.S. would be lucky to raise $25 billion per year from such a tax. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but you have to realize that a lot of these programs that Bernie Sanders is proposing are into the tens of billions, tens of trillions of dollars. So this isn't even going to even come close to scratching the surface. People will hold on now. As a natural result of this tax, people will just simply avoid it. People will hold on to stocks much longer and not partake in the kind of behavior that is being targeted in the tax. So a lot of trades that happen currently won't happen, and so volume of trade goes down. This is something that we really need to talk about. So this wealth, this income inequality, this happens in nature all the time. There's inequality everywhere. You can't get away from it. You really can't. This happens in the animal kingdom and happens in the plant kingdom. There's certain species of plants that take up more resources than others. But of course, they provide more of a value and more benefit to the entire ecosystem. This is the same thing that happens in a healthy economy. You will have people providing value to the entire population. They will, as a result, get wealthy because of it. As well, they should. They took risk and they got rewarded. That is how this life goes. You don't get rewarded by taking no risk. You don't get rewarded by doing nothing. You have to do something in order to affect any kind of change, to affect any type of thing happening in your life. But government intervention in this is not the answer either. You know, entrepreneurs and business owners, they're naturally going to be controlling more of the assets than those who are not. I mean, that's just simple math. And those who are lucky enough to work for some of these big corporations and stuff like that, they are worth what they can offer that corporation. Now, if you are an unskilled worker and you're not doing much, but just simply putting widgets together, you should be paid accordingly because you do not have as much to offer that company. Now, you know, subsidizing more education and stuff like that, especially for companies that help pay for further education, I think that's a good thing, because then the people who get the education and have more of a value to come back into the company and provide more value to the company. And there you go. Everyone wins. It's a win-win situation. I think we should always be looking for these win-win situations. So whenever you're in a discussion with a liberal or someone of a left-leaning ideology thinking in there, they're going to constantly be bringing up this income equality. You need to ask them an important question. Ask them if if everyone, if all the rich people got richer, and as a result it made the poorest of the poor better off, would you have a problem with that? Would you have a problem with the rich getting richer? Now, if they have a problem with the rich people getting richer, then it has nothing to do with the poor people. It has to do with, a type of jealousy or envy of people being successful or having money or being wealthy and stuff like that. We also, like I said, we have to go back and understand that those who actually manage capital correctly and they are wealthy, they are not just sitting on Scrooge McDuck's bank and they're not swimming in gold coins. They are putting that money back in the economy, and it's going around in a continuous feedback loop. They are the lifeblood that keeps a true capitalist society going. And a true capitalist society seeks to be the center. Yes, we should have some social nets and support for those who need it. However, we should not stigmatize those who are wealthy and have actually played the game well. And it's not really a game. It's just providing things of value to people, and that's all it is. If you can provide something of value to other people, then they will in turn buy it from you, and you will eventually become rich if there's enough demand for it. Now, if you mismanage your capital and you are not a good steward of capital, then you will go broke, as well you should, and you should not be bailed out. I completely agree with that. That's something I agree with Bernie Sanders on, and all the liberals out there, that Wall Street shouldn't have been bailed out. The banks shouldn't have been bailed out. They should have been allowed to fail. We should have we should have taken our licks, basically, as a country. But that was not allowed to happen, and now we are on we're worse off as a result. People are more poor now as a result, but we should be focusing on just simply that, to lift up those who are in poverty, and punishing those who are wealthy. Punishing the system in general will never do that. So the second part of the question, when you're asking a liberal this, if they say no to that, if they say that they wouldn't have a problem with the rich getting richer, then this whole income inequality thing is completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. They really care about the poor people. They want to lift the poor people up. But you do not do that by sacrificing the system in general. The only way to help those out of poverty is to look for creative ways to lift them out of that poverty without sacrificing the entire system as a result. There's all different types of things that you can help lift people out of poverty, especially when it comes to we have to look at the reasons why they are in poverty. A lot of it has to do with the criminal justice system as well, and the entire, there's a whole feedback loop system when it comes to that as well. So we really need to look at that and try to prevent that and help people get gainful employment when they are reformed through the criminal justice system. They should not have to pay for that their entire lives. There should be obviously social safety nets that are there for people to push them in the right direction so they can have a better life. We should embrace minimalism as well, that I keep talking about. There's a lot of different ways that we can do this without completely destroying the system. Bernie Sanders wants to destroy the system. Bernie Sanders, even though he says he's a democratic socialist, he does not agree with capitalism at its heart. He thinks that everyone should be equal. And like I said, who could disagree with that? But when you have a system where everyone's equal, then everyone's equally miserable as well. So until next time, this is Joe with Simple Life Show. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.